Thank you for joining us for the webinar for May, talking about hypergrowth for accounting firms. Very, very happy to have a good friend of mine, Rob Nixon, on the call. So welcome, Rob, to the webinar.
Great to be here, Nick. Pleasure to help your audience out.
Wonderful. So today we're going to talk around getting an absolute return on your time. And the reason why we're talking about this topic is the majority of firms are focusing and are so being busy. And a lot of the work is compliance work, which is historical. And they're not really set up to deliver on will make the most difference to clients, which in a lot of cases is the advisory work. They don't have time for themselves and they don't have time for their clients. So what we're really looking at is how can we help you change the lives of your clients? 80% of revenue typically for an accounting firm is tax, compliance and audit work, which is all historical, and only a very small amount is on advisory. So really, how can we help you, and how can Rob's knowledge and experience in advising accountants for a long time, really can you take these things on board and start to implement these to make your firm add more value to your clients, to give you more time? So how do we help you get the right setup so that you can engineer the time and capacity to get the time you need with your clients to help change their lives? So we're going to go right into a poll quickly to start off with. So do you feel that you are delivering the most value to your clients? So I'll quickly run this poll. So just a quick yes or no. Do you feel that you are delivering the most value to your clients? So at the moment, we've got 100% of people are saying no, slightly changing. Rob, I don't know if this is surprising you, but 93% are no at the moment and 7% are yes.
It's good to be honest up front, Nick. That's good.
Yeah, so we might just close that poll off. So that's fantastic that everyone's answered that. So thank you. So we ended up with 88% of people on today's webinar saying no, they don't feel they're delivering the most value to clients. 12% are saying they are. So Rob, leads us well into, thank you again for your time today to be on the webinar. For those that don't know you, and I'm sure there's not too many, do you want to just give us a little bit about background about Rob Nixon, and then we'll lead into a question straight after that.
Well, Nick, it turns out almost to the day, in fact, the 20th of May, 1994, so 24 years, almost to the day today, I've been blessed to work with accountants all over the world. So I coached 434 of them, adding 850 million in profit to those. There might be some, old coaching firms on the line today. I've had the opportunity to speak at various conferences in 16 countries, about 175,000 people. And the accounting profession has been my life's work, if you like, for pretty much exactly 24 years. So I've learned a lot about what works, what doesn't work, and what firms can do to speed up the process to achieve their goals. So there's a quick backstory. I've written 3 books along the way, developed a number of companies along the way, and here to help out with any questions. So as we go through, pop some questions in the question box, and I'll get them answered as well.
Yeah, it's a great point. So if you do have any questions throughout the webinar, please chuck them into the question box and we'll answer them as we go. But Rob, to start off with, what are the key observations you've seen or you've been seeing from accountants? So the biggest observations around how they're running their firms and the biggest struggles that you're seeing that they're having, because, to have the majority of 90% of people on today's webinar say that they don't feel like they're delivering the most value to clients, what are the key observations that you've been seeing?
So let's just look at that question and the honesty on the webinar that 88% said no, I don't feel that we are, 12% said that they are. The only way to know if you're adding value to your client is, I believe, and based on the firms that I've met and the really good ones, is that the clients are buying everything they need that helps them achieve their goals. And I learned that from an accounting firm, actually, that sat me down and did a goals setting session with me. And I thought, wow, that's pretty impressive, where they are wanting to know about my goals and they're matching services towards those. So your first question, Nick, the reality is that the profession is so bogged down in historical services. In fact, it's 87% are historical services, tax, compliance, and audit, according to IBISWorld. And that is really just the have-to work, right? That is not the good stuff. That's not what clients really want. Many, many years ago, I had the opportunity to interview 1,077 business owners on behalf of 126 accounting firms. And in a board room type setting where the partners were in the room. And the general consensus was, we know they know more than we get. We just don't know what they know. So consequently, and that's consistent today. Clients don't know what they don't know. And accountants are not systematically, I find, visiting clients, helping them find out, what it is they're looking for in the future, and then adding services around that. So it's because of the compliance trap and the busyness around that partners are not getting out there to really service their clients, and consequently, you've got 88% said, no, I don't believe that we do.
So, Rob, that probably leads into another question around, there's obviously been a lot of talk for many years around compliance is going to be dead, and a lot of it's being pushed by product providers and service providers in the industry. And as we know, compliance is always going to be there because government's always making more and more complex legislation. What's your take on it, though, around how an accounting firm can pivot from offering only tax and compliance to adding real value to their clients, and what do those services look like?
So some people have criticised me over the years by saying just that, compliance will be dead. And I've never actually said that. I've said that it's changing and technology is changing it dramatically. But there's nothing surer than death and taxes. So compliance is not going to go away. It's just going to be different. But if you believe, right, if you really believe that you should be offering additional services other than the have-to work, then really what I've learned from the firms that I've observed is that the really good ones go through a three-step process, what may sound like sequential steps, but really they are all at the same time. And so when I observe a firm that's really cranking, and you go back a few years, so, well, what did you do to get to that position? And typically what they've done, first of all, is sort out what's going on today. Sort out the workflows, sort out the client mix, the current reality gets sorted. Whether that be pricing, whether that be work in progress receivables, the day-to-day work, the technology, all the things that are happening today, get that sorted. Then, we can, and at the same time, build some capacity, build capacity with efficiency, build capacity with different systems, build capacity with offshoring, with people, but not by hiring more accountants locally. And then what I see with the firms that have really got capacity, now we can grow. Now we can actually grow the top line revenue, grow the number of clients, grow the average fee per client, grow the number of services that the clients buy, and ultimately, if we don't add on the overhead, we'll grow the profit at the same time. So that's when I see a really good quality firm, really well run. You go back a few years and they seem to have followed those three steps, but they are not sequential steps. They're very much at the same time.
Yeah, really interesting. So Rob, the firms that aren't doing it, what are you seeing the biggest struggles that firms have? The average accountant, what are the biggest struggles that these firms are having?
So Michael Gerber wrote a seminal book 32 years ago, 1986, The E-Myth. Many have read it, right? And he made a phrase in there that, we should spend more time working on the business than in the business. And everyone's heard that, right? And if you haven't, you've been living under a rock. Right? But it's so true. Working in is doing what the business does. Working on is working out, new systems development, growing, developing the business. So the firms that are stuck in the doing bit, where you see partner productivity or utilization extremely high, you see, lots of busyness going on, and everyone's busy just doing the historical services, catching up, doing the compliance, doing the audits, doing the filing, the lodging, etc. It's those firms where they're not spending the time, as Gerber would say, to work on. It's those ones that are not developing. Those ones are the ones that are very busy for sure, but they're not growing and developing their firm because they just haven't got they do have the time, but the time is poorly used in the firm?
It's an interesting one because we often say to a lot of firms that we talk to on a weekly basis is they typically have the wrong people doing the wrong work. And, that's part of, I suppose, building a global team is putting the right roles into the right locations with the right work. But what are you seeing with firms where partners are still on the tools doing the work? What's your observations been with a typical accounting firm with where a partner spends their time versus where they should be really spending their time?
So, interesting point, which I suppose is going to lead into what should a partner be doing, right, with their time. I don't know how long ago it was, but I've been an avid lifelong learner since the age of 17. I'm currently 48. So what's 30 years of devouring, texts and books and back in the day, audio tapes, etc. And I remember years and years ago, I was listening to a Brian Tracy tape. And Brian Tracy, actually Googled him last night. He's well into his 70s and he's still going strong, traveling the world with his personal development and sales messages. Anyway, so listen to Brian, and I was in the accounting profession then, so this is still a long time ago. And Brian said he was interviewing this executive one day, and she was making whatever she was making, but she wanted to make more. And Brian said to her, well, why don't you keep a log of what you actually do? Keep the log for the month of, the tasks that you do in the last month. You won a new client, you did this work, you wrote a proposal up, whatever you did, right? Keep it for a month, and when it starts repeating itself, stop keeping the log. And he said typically that particular log was about 20 to 30 items long. And then he said to the executive lady, all right, go back and find the highest dollar productive activity in the last 30 days. Highlight that one. Find the second one and find the third. What were the 3 highest dollar productive activities that you did in the last month? And then he said, now what I want you to do, and it was just gold, right? Now what I want you to do is go to your boss and say to your boss, I just want to do these 3 things. And if I do these 3 things, I can really focus on growing the business. And there's some sort of bonus or incentive for this person, if I recall the story. And anyway, she did those 3 things only, and she doubled her income and grew the business. And ever since I heard that story, I thought this is what partners of accounting firms should be doing. And they should be looking at seriously, what do you actually do with your time? Now, the vast majority of firms keep timesheets, so although the big black hole of admin in there, you need to, work out what really is admin, and look at, so what do you actually do with your time? Okay, you're emailing, you're phoning, you're meeting with clients, you're talking to the ATO, or you may have someone else doing that. You're, doing some compliance work. You're, maybe do the business advisory work, maybe a referral from a new client, all these things, right? All these activities, and do the same thing. Work out, and typically, as it's just human nature, 20 to 30 items long in a month, and find the highest dollar productive activity. What was the best yield of your time for that last month? What's the number one? Oh, look at that. I had a prospect meeting with a potential new client. It took me an hour and a half. They're now a $15,000 client with a GP of 75%. Good use of your time. Let's do more of that. Look at that. I was able to do a value-based fees, value pricing, deliver on some work that I'd priced previously, and my yield was like $750 now. Let's do more of that. And look at that. I actually did, some leadership work in really, driving the performance of the business. Let's do more of that. So when we look at how we spend our time, I'm talking to the partners on the line, you've got to look critically and say, okay, there's lots of stuff to do. It's a business. We've got things to do. But what is the best use? What is the absolute best use, the best, as Brian said, highest dollar productive activity of your time?
It's a great point, Rob, and it's something that I often talk about I talked about this at our recent roadshow in March to firms around do that exercise with everyone in your firm. So not just the partners, but do that with everyone. And I had a podcast interview with one of our clients about a month ago, and she implemented an EA for herself. She heard us talking about it at one of our roadshows, and that saved her in a year about 300 hours of her time. When you look at her charge-out rate, that's about $90,000 worth of charge-out rate time just by implementing a resource that cost about $15,000. So, and that...
Look, just on that, Nick, Jack Daly is a good friend of mine, has been for many years, and he's got a great line, that if you don't have a PA, then you are one.
Couldn't agree more. But that it's just a small example, and that was just one role that this firm's put in place to maximise the time of the people that it should be. So that exercise, I highly suggest firms doing that with all types of roles. But that probably leads us straight into our next poll question, which is a great one to go into. Do you feel that your firm is getting the most return on your time? So we'll quickly jump into this poll. Honesty is the best policy here. So I'll quickly run this poll live. Do you feel your firm is getting the most return on your time? So very similar results to last time. Close to 90% are saying no. 11% are saying yes. So we'll close that off in a minute. We might just close that one off now. So, Rob, does that surprise you that 90% of attendees on today's webinar are saying that they don't feel the firm's getting the most return on their time?
No, it doesn't surprise me at all. It's exactly what we were just saying. I'd like to introduce a new acronym today, Nick, and it's ROMT, right? Return on my time.
Love it. Love it.
Because, time is a big excuse. I don't have time to do it. It's absolute bollocks, right? We've all got the same 24 hours in the day. We've all got the same 168 hours in the week. We've all got the same 86,200 seconds in a day. It's not I don't have enough time. It's what I'm doing with my time. What are you actually doing? And is it business or is it busyness? Same spelling. So a lot of people just waste time doing things. Here's a classic example of this. The other week at home, it was a Sunday night. It was a Sunday night, and we live in a rural area, so we don't have town gas. Sure enough, the 4 gas bottles all are empty, all empty. And Monday morning, I had to catch a flight somewhere, Melbourne if I recall, and I thought, damn it, I'm in for a cold shower in the morning, right? And if I'm going to get on that plane, I need to be at least fresh. And so how much time do you think I took in that shower? Right? It wasn't much. Right? I was in and out, going 100 miles an hour, cold shower. I needed to get presentable to go down to Melbourne. And I was in and out in 90 seconds. But that 90-second shower could have taken 5 minutes. I've taken 10 minutes before. And it's just human nature. People fill the available time with what work they've got to do. And the old saying that we've all heard it, if you want something done, give it to a busy person, because they move and work faster. So we've got to look at, pushing ourselves to get the most out of the time that we've got, because we've all got the identical same time. Never give me the excuse I don't have time. Right? It's just rubbish.
So, Rob, that probably leads into the next question I have for you then. What's holding firms back from growth? What are you seeing that's holding firms back? Is it that they're just too busy being busy, or what is it?
One's a desire. Let's start there, right? After 24 years working with the profession all over the world, the profession does pretty well, right? In America, the accounting profession, out of all of the SEC codes of the type of business type, the accounting profession is the most profitable in the whole country, right? As far as a business type. I don't know what it is in Australia, New Zealand, I'm not too sure where your audience is from today, but you look at a partner of an accounting firm and you can make $300,000, $350,000, $400,000 profit just for you without trying that hard. And with that sort of income, you can have a reasonable lifestyle. And if you've been a partner of an accounting firm for 15, 20 years, you've built up some assets, you've grown the asset value of your property portfolio or your share portfolio. The kids have been at private schools, you drove a nice car, you're a member of a golf club, whatever it is, you've had a reasonable life. Like you're earning more than the vast majority of the workers in Australia or your country, wherever you're from, right? And so consequently, what happens is, as a result of a business that can provide a good income, and as a result of a business that is very reactive, and I am generalizing here because I know you'll have some very proactive firms online, it's very reactive in nature. It's busy. There's lots of things going on. Government changes the rules. We write to our clients. Now we have to do this. Clients are always wanting things. The email pings, the phone rings. We kick into gear. And constantly behind the desk reacting, but still earning good money. Not trying that hard to really, because you don't really need to, because you may be comfortable with your lot in life, not trying that hard to actually, build a big business. So consequently, this reactiveness, this reasonable, pretty good income for the vast majority, and not needing to actually grow the business because you get referrals, put your charge rates up, whatever, you grow the revenue, etc., breeds apathy and it reduces self-esteem. So there's a whole knock-on effect of psychology of the person. So then you say, well, let's grow the business. Well, I don't really want to. I'm pretty comfortable. So when it comes to growth, the first part, it's definitely a mindset. For tactics and strategies, hundreds of those, worked with that many firms, helping them to grow their profitability, their revenue, etc., that the strategies are endless. But it all starts with the individual, the owners of the business. How motivated are you? Not just to grow the revenue, but to build a business that, as my friend Paul Dunn says, to build a business that matters, to build a business that actually, instead of writing up the history, which 87% of the revenue is, it's helping your clients make history. To build a business that is really servicing its clients properly, and when you get away from tax compliance and move more into other business advisory services, you can change lives. But you've got to be motivated to do all that sort of stuff. Otherwise, the tactics and strategies just fall on deaf ears. So it all starts, number one, what do the business owners, the partners of the firm, what do they want for this business, for themselves? Because this business, it is a business, it's not a practice, right? It's a business to run, and it can provide. It can be as big as you want it to be. PwC started out with a price of Waterhouse and Coopers. Ernst & Young started out with 2 people, and Ernst and Young, right? Now they're big behemoths. It can be as big as you want it to be, but you've got to have that deep burning desire to do it. It all starts there, Nick.
Yeah, great answers. Really interesting insights there, the desire. Rob, what I'm seeing, and when I'm presenting at a lot of things, and I know that you talk a lot in the industry around the globe, where managers and senior staff are coming up to me saying, the firm owners are so stuck in their way of doing things in the past. They want me to buy into the firm, but I don't want to buy into all of this baggage when it's so easy to go out and set up my own firm. So they're really getting some pushback now from retaining really strong talent that they've grown. So what are you seeing out in the industry from that next level down, which are the future partners? Because where firms are not wanting to make these changes, they've got the real risk of being able to exit their business at a maximum price, I see, because of that challenge. Are you seeing the same types of trends when you're out presenting around the globe?
Absolutely, 100%. If you think about, and my advice to the up-and-coming potential partner is if you're not going to be able to change the partners that are there currently, then why don't you leave and start your own show? Right? So,
I'm not sure everyone wants to hear that on the call, but I don't disagree. Yeah.
Let's get real, right? Let's talk about starting your own accounting business. What do you actually need? And by the way, my preference is that the current partners would actually build a better business to retain those people. Let's talk real though, right? If the current partners are stuck in their ways, they're comfortable, they've got their wealth sorted, blah, 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 they don't really want to change, etc. Well, the reality is they're not going to hold on to the up-and-coming talent. So let's talk about the up-and-coming talent. You start an accounting business. What do you need? Well, literally, You can do it on one laptop, like a big iPad or a Microsoft Surface, or or something like that, right? A couple of $1,000, $2,000 or $3,000. A phone which you've already got. You can get clients for free on social media. We can get resourced people, through your business, Nick, pretty quickly. If you need some extra people, we can buy software inexpensively rather than upfront fee these days on a monthly subscription. You've already got your skills, literally for a few $1,000s and working. You don't need an office. That can be a cafe. You don't need a car. That can be Uber, right? So you can literally start your accounting business on a few $1,000s and you're away. Get a website done on Fiverr for next to nothing. The world's changed, So if you can't move the partners, then why don't you move?
Yep. Interesting. Very interesting. Rob, that probably leads me into the next question I have for you, which is, what are the top strategies to growth for accounting firms?
Well, number one, as I said, it's got to be the mindset, right? Do you really want to do this? Because the 88% of you said, we know we're not servicing our clients properly. So but to know it is one thing. As my buddy Michael Sheargold says, the power of an idea is in its implementation. Couldn't
agree more.
We know it, but we don't do it. We know we should, right? So one is the desire, and working out what that actually looks like. So you might be doing $750,000 revenue now. You might be doing $7 million in revenue now. $75 million in revenue now. What is our desire? What size do we want? Pick a number, etc. And then we do the work back, right? So let's say we use round figures, right? Let's say $1 million revenue. I want to grow to $2 million. And the $2 million target is 3 years, for example. So what's that? I think it's exactly 26% per year in top line growth, which is not a whole lot. To double in 3 years, we need 26% per year. And now we do the work back. So straight out mathematics, my $1 million in revenue, and I'll just use round figures to keep it easy. I've got 200 clients, 200 business clients at an average of $5,000 each, for example. And those business clients, they range in size from a tradesperson through to a small corporation, and the fee ranges from $2,000 to $10,000, let's say, right? And so we want to grow to 2, though. We want to grow to 2, so we've got a few choices here. Do we grow the client numbers, still at $5,000 average, which means we're going to double the client base, maybe. Do we acquire a firm? So these are all more not definitive steps. Nick, it's a whole range of different things that we could adopt, right?
Yep.
So do we acquire another firm? I'm at $1 million now. I want to get to 2, so I acquire another $1 million firm, merge them in. Typically not the best strategy I've observed, because most mergers or acquisitions, when the existing firms, go back to what I've observed, where the really good firms, sort out what they had initially and then got capacity, often you see firms go and acquire firms and the current one doesn't work so well in the first place. So consequently, the combined both don't work so well in the first place. So not a great strategy, but it's valid. Would I rather, with my 200 clients, thermal them up, from an average of 5,000 to, say, 7.5? So now I've added $500,000 in revenue. Okay, cool. I can do that. And then I might, even could go even further than that. I might do some marketing, some target marketing to fill the gap of the 500 over the next 3 years. So I really want to target a sector, and I'm looking for, what do we, $500,000 gap. We started with $1 million with our numbers were 200 clients at $5,000. Now we've got 200 clients at 7.5 average, so 1.5. And we now target, next clients must be a minimum of 10, must be a minimum of 10,000. So to fill the gap of 500,000, I now need 50 clients over the next 3 years. So you do the work back on that and go, right, I've got simultaneous strategies going on. I've got existing clients buying more or paying more, or combo, 200 of those. And over the next 3 years, I've got to find 50 clients at $10,000 a year. What's that divided by 17 clients a year, call it 20. Then we do the work back on that and say, okay, we've got, we need 2 a month. new clients. Well, how are we going to get that? Well, we start with referrals, and then on top of that, we start some targeted marketing as well. So to me, it's straight out, starts with the desire, then the mathematics of it all, and making sure that, by the way, any top line revenue that we add, we're not adding to the cost structure as well. And we grow this thing in a systematic basis. 26% a year is not a whole lot. Double sounds like a lot, but 3 years, it's not much. If you want to do it in 2 years, it's 42.76 recurring percent. I'm not an accountant, by the way. Those that know me, I'm not an accountant, but I was a straight A student at math in school. So the tactics and strategies come after the mathematics, Nick. There's so many different tactics and strategies.
Yeah, interesting one. So I'm going to move on to our next poll question before I move into building a global workforce and getting your thoughts on that. So we'll just run a quick poll now around, have you already got an offshore team? Have you started to build a global team so that we can see from the people that are on the webinar today where you currently sit, so we can obviously tailor some of the conversation we're about to have around that. So we'll just run this third poll now. So do you already have an offshore team? So we've got a big chunk of our clients are on the call today. So now about 50% already do have a team, which is great. 21% need more information, about 10% saying that they're against it. So we'll talk a little bit towards that, Rob. And yeah, about 13% are saying that decided to do it but not yet implemented anything. So we might just finish that poll off now. And Rob, this leads into a question to you. What have you seen the best accounting firms doing in regards to building a global workforce?
So let me answer this way, Nick, because you and I were in the same room in the Philippines when this happened. You may not know this happened, but it happened to me, and you're in the same room. You might recall about 6 years ago, we went to the Philippines for an entrepreneurs organization event, and we tacked on a study tour with Mike's Manila Tours, right? And if I recall, the first day you got violently ill.
I did. I had food poisoning from the conference the day before.
Yeah. And I got violently ill on the last day, and I was holed up in my hotel room for 19 hours on a drip, right? So I think it was 6 years ago. It was a long time ago. Anyway, we visited an offshoring company, and I asked of the lady that was there, I can't remember her name, I asked a very judgmental question of this particular individual. I didn't realize at the time, it was just an ignorant, judgmental question. And that was, so what can you guys do? Right? Assuming, when I think about my question, was like, well, what are you, like, can you just screw tops on a bottle? What capabilities do you have? And it's a really bad question when you think about it. And so the answer I got, and I can still see it because you were there, Nick, but I understand you were getting a bit sick at the time, right? The answer I got that I heard was the following. We can do any task behind a phone or a computer that anyone else can do for a third to the tenth of the cost, often better, often faster. And that was the answer. Okay, cool. Any task over the phone behind a computer. And this is the Philippines. And of course, the over the phone was because their English is very good. And anyway, I lost track of everything after that one comment. Because what I started doing was writing down, in my business, all the tasks that could be done over the phone or behind a computer. That was the first list. And the second list was, well, what about, my clients being accounting firms? What tasks do they do that are over the phone or behind the computer? I start writing them all down. I'm thinking, it's just about everything. And I've come back from that. And I already had some experience of, hiring people in India, but never in the Philippines until that particular meeting. And I've come back going, wow, we're going to do this. We are going to do this. We are going to do it ourselves. And it was at that point in time that I thought I need to promote this to the accounting profession because it's an opportunity to free up the team members who are local, as in local, which is just use Australia as local, free them up to do more value-added work, and get other people to do the less value work, but they enjoy doing it. And so this started a whole discussion around, and I think it was 2012, Nick, when I put you on a stage, at a seminar I was running, and you spoke about what you were doing with your business back then, Wealth Farm, and you had a lot of interest, and hence now this is why you have TOA, the outsourced accountant. And so I've been talking about that example that really hit me hard, and other accounting firms have cottoned onto it and said, okay, third to a tenth of the cost, faster and better. And that has flown through to be true. So now what I'm seeing really well-run accounting businesses, and I want to get to the point about, I've got a problem with it because I see about 12 or 14% said that on your webinar, Nick, because some people do have a problem with this. But what I'm seeing now with really well-run accounting businesses is that it's about a 1-for-1 ratio. Locally, in Melbourne or Sydney, wherever you're from, it is client-facing. So locally, it is, sales, service, advice, for example. Everything else is done somewhere else. And if everything else is done somewhere else, processing work, administrative work, etc., then that can free up the local people to do more useful work. So, I've been a big fan of this for a long time. I don't know how many accounting firms around the world that I've sent on various study tours. When I say sent, recommended that they should go. And it just works. Now, you're the experts in this, Nick, as far as getting them set up. I've gone through an experience with your people the last couple of months on getting my person set up, Jonah, who started yesterday, and a really good experience on the pre-work before we got to the interviews, and then after the interviews, how to work, right? And it just works. It just works exceptionally well. There's an abundance of people who want to work hard, and the money that you're paying them is sometimes 3 times the minimum wage in the country. So they're living well as doing a fulfilling job. So big fan of the whole process.
It's an interesting one, Rob, and I'll ask you a further question to this. But, I do a weekly podcast. I had a firm last week that they've increased their average hourly rate by 50% since having their global team, because their local team are focusing on the right type of work. And, there's endless examples of how building a global team and having the right people do the right work can add significant value. And we're having firms of all sizes, from sole practitioners right up to second-tier firms with a couple of hundred staff or more, getting real value out of it. But there's still a lot of people that are skeptical about building a global team. Even today there's, close to 10% that are against it. What do you say to the accountants that are against building a global team? What would you say to them?
So first of all, those that know me understand that I can be quite blunt, direct, and to the point. So this is going to be one of those instances. So the firms that I mentor and or speed engagements, this topic comes up all the time, right? And often, Nick, it's more than 10%, because some people, what I see in accounting firms, the firm itself may have endorsed the strategy, got people set up offshore, yet the accountants internally haven't given them the work, right? So here's my answer to the skeptics, and this is a pretty blunt answer. If you're skeptical about this as a strategy, as far as a business opportunity, it is not a redundancy strategy of the local team. However, if the local team in Brisbane, or wherever you're from, are not going to add value, their days are going to be numbered. But if you think that this is a strategy for enabling you to grow and scale and grow fast, right? So if you've got a problem with this, I want you to look at every single piece of clothing that you own. I want you to look at every single piece of furniture that you've purchased. I want you to look at every single implement in your kitchen, the components on your car, right? Even your iPhone says it was designed in Cupertino in California. And if everything you own is not Australian made, right, then you're being a hypocrite on this strategy. That's my blunt view on this.
Yeah, look, Rob, I think the biggest takeaways that I've got from the podcast, that we have a weekly podcast that goes out, and the biggest thing that I've taken away from it in all the interviews I've done so far is the time that it gives back to people, not only the partners, but the people in the firms. And, we had one accountant that had been doing this for, 20 plus years and never taken more than 2 weeks off in a row. He's just got back from a 6-week holiday. One of our firms is moved to a 5-day workday in Australia with their business. We had another firm owner that moved to Vietnam and lived there for 12 months and ran a dispersed team across Melbourne in Australia, the Philippines in the global team, and him and his family lived in Vietnam and had that experience for 12 months. So it's been really interesting. And sorry, just to clarify, it wasn't a 5-day workday, it was a 5-hour workday. So, there's been lots of results, but people are still, I suppose, a little bit pessimistic around it. But for anyone that is pessimistic, we're happy to obviously have a chat to you and talk around these, because profit is a side benefit from doing it. It's not a reason to do it. And that's what I think's really changed around with firms, is learning that, how do they get the value from it? How can it fit into their team? How does their local team, how does it work for them? So that it obviously values and benefits the overall business. So, Rob, I mentioned before around one of the firms increased their average hourly rate by 50% over, I think it was a 3-year period of building a global team with us. A lot of people, when I ask that question on my podcast, is what is your average hourly rate? A lot of firms don't actually measure that. This question goes back to you. What are the top 3 KPIs that you believe a successful firm should measure?
So, call KPIs, key performance indicators. We can call them key result areas. We can call them inputs. We can call them outputs. There's a whole range of definitions on that. But definitely, average hourly rate, yield, margin, whatever you want to call it, right, is definitely one of them. And that's either for the client hours done, or preferably for all the hours that are, it's not a new term. I didn't even invent it, right? It's gone back for decades. But it's a simple enough equation where, you've got 10 people. They work 2,000 hours a year. Just round figures again. So you've got 20,000 worked hours. The 10 people include, everyone from administration to partners to everyone, right? You've got 20,000 worked hours. You did $1 million in revenue. That's $50 an hour. And so that number, is a very important number, without a doubt. And definitely, if you're measuring inputs, as far as what is the indicator, this is on the growth topic, by the way, Nick. And you have to look at sales meetings, how many sales meetings were conducted. Again, so in the context of we're growing the revenue at the same time growing the profit, how many sales meetings did we do with either prospects or existing clients? And then on top of that, going back from that, and you can measure conversion rate as well. How many leads did we get from our marketing people to help us, get some sales meetings? So the inputs being, for growth, leads, sales meetings, conversion rate. There's more than that, but if you look at those 3 and measuring average hourly rate all the way through. And, but again, I want to go back to, Nick, what we started talking about as to, on growth. It's all about a mindset. It all starts there. It all starts with, the desire. What do you want? What do you want to achieve? Do you want a bigger boat? Do you want a bigger car? Do you just want to create some wealth? You want to give back? You want a deep desire to build a good business, right? Desire, start there. And then, maybe the desire is that we want to really make our, service our clients properly, make sure they're well looked after. Because, an old bank manager taught me one of this years ago. And he said to me at the bank, if our clients buy 4 products from us, they're going nowhere. It's too hard to switch. When you look at what products, what services, what a client buys from the accountant, typically it's 1.5 to 2.5 services per client per year. Things, items, right? Laundry list. So what is the desire? If we've got that mindset, and whether you've got that deep burning desire now, or whether you need a bit of a push, a bit of a shove, to get it. It all starts there, Nick. Offshoring, great strategy, but if you don't want to grow your business, then just keep doing what you've been doing. But Malcolm Gladwell, think his name in a minute. He's a great book. Said, the strategies that got you here today won't be the ones that get you there in the future.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And, the recent roadshow, one of the excuses when I asked, and it's really interesting when you ask a room of accountants, how many of you would actively ring your clients more than once a year just to say hello or visit their workplace, and you get basically no one in the room putting their hand up. And I asked the question then when no one did. I think it was in Perth. There was 50 accountants there, and no one put their hand up. And I said to them, why don't you ring your clients and proactively just see how they're going, or go and visit them? And two people put their hands up and said, Nick, we just don't have the time to deal with what work they're going to give us. And it just amazed me that, we're running businesses, but yet we don't have time to even, go and get more work from our clients that they need and want, but we just don't have the time to talk. Is that, again, something that you've found, Rob, when you're talking to accounting firms, that there's so much opportunity on the table with their existing clients, but they just don't take the time to actually identify that and work with their clients?
It's unbelievable, right? So if you look at a client base, back to our 200 client firm, where there's categories of A, B, C, and D, maybe some E's and Z's as well. And you look at the 80-20 rule, the Pareto's principle of spend 80% of your time on 20% of the revenue, 20% of the time, 80% of the revenue, blah, blah, blah. And you look at, well, I've got no time to service my clients. I'm just too damn busy. Well, how about we get some existing clients, the C's, D's, and E's and Z's, and free up their future and refer them to someone else and just focus on the good clients? Because typically it's the not so good clients that spend the time on the complaining clients, the bad payers, the bad workflow clients, whatever they are, is your definition. What if we quarantined them? What if we sold them off? What if we gave them away? To free up some capacity. Tone consistency in your comments, Nick.
Yeah, great feedback. So we've got about 12 minutes to go on the webinar. So if anyone does have any questions, please send them through in the question box, and we'll try and answer these during the last 12 minutes. But going back to what you're just talking about there with time, Rob, how do you believe partners of accounting firms can get the best absolute return on their time? What are some of the strategies that they can put in place to maximise what they do?
Well, first of all, it is the one we talked about earlier, the 20 to 30 items, one, understanding what you do now, working out what the highest dollar productive activities are, and typically it's the same three for, the firms that are high performing, and that is high-end advice, for a lower percentage of time, so full rack rate advisory work, sales, because the partners are excellent at sales. By the way, if you have a partner that, back to my blunt style again, if you have a partner who doesn't want to sell, then they're an overpaid accountant, because we can hire that person for far less. And then leadership and the split of time around that, to drive it. So first of all, identifying what is the best use of time. That's all right. I just want to do those three things, right? Now I need structure around me to take everything away. And typically what I see with a firm where the partners are doing a lot of chargeable time, one of the critical things they're missing out on is the next level down of leader, of manager, someone that can delegate a lot of their work to. And hiring that person, to enable them to actually free up their time. Or alternatively, to free up the partner time, a lot of partners, particularly multi-partner firms, spend a huge amount of time on business administration. So let's hire a business manager, a general manager, maybe larger firms as CEO to take over that, because that again is not a great use of partner time. Maybe it's the assistant thing. Maybe it's the freeing up capacity of some existing clients. There's a whole range of strategies there that can be employed to free up the time. But, the first thing is I remember years ago, back in 2005, when I started my first coaching business, and on my whiteboard in permanent ink, right, I wrote on it, I will only do these three things. And I wrote them, and that was going to be it, in permanent ink up the top corner of the whiteboard. Because I knew that is going to be the best use of my time.
Yeah, love it. And that's, I run the exact same philosophies, that these are the three core activities that I do. And anything outside of that gets delegated to someone that's better at doing that.
Yeah.
And so, Rob, a question's come through, and it's an interesting one. It's one that we often get when I'm out at roadshows and speaking events, and it's around the question is, how do I attract and retain the best accountants in the marketplace?
Well, attract and retain are two different strategies. Attract is very much a marketing strategy. And so, the youngster that comes out of university, 22, 23 years old, they do not want to work for a traditional, dowdy, old-looking accounting business, whether they see that on a public persona website or when they walk into the place, they can see this place is just old. So attraction is very much a marketing strategy. Naomi Simpson's a friend of mine off Shark Tank, and Naomi runs Red Balloon. They hire about 50 people, but she told me one day they get 150 applications a month, and there's not even any jobs been advertised. So clearly, whatever she's doing marketing-wise to promote her business, people go, I want to work at that place. I want to work at that place. I visited Google a couple of years back 18 months ago in Silicon Valley, and the applications they got, per week was just an inordinate amount, whether there were jobs advertised or not. So one's attraction is all about marketing, how you market your business and what the outside world. Retention of people is all about culture. So what is the culture of this place? What is the behavior standards? What's the, great example on culture is the Ritz-Carlton Hotel. There's a great book called The New Gold Standard. And it's all about how they've structured the culture with their performance standards, their daily huddles, the way they work. It's all about culture. Retention is all about culture. Now, there were very short answers, Nick, to a long, topic. So.
I couldn't agree. And I suppose the onus of time, we've only got 7 minutes left. It was very good.
Sure.
And I find that common, the best accounting firms, when you're talking to them, don't have any problem attracting and retaining great quality staff. The ones that aren't, and if you're having challenges attracting the right staff, then maybe looking at the image and the way that your business is put out to the market, because you should be able to attract really quality people if you're a really quality firm. And a lot of it does come back to that marketing piece, which I agree with you, Rob. So we're going to quickly finish off in the next 5 minutes. So I'm just going to run through a quick few polls to finish off with. One that we got asked for to include in our webinars in the past: would you like a consultation to find out how leading firms got started with a global offshore team? So we'll just run this poll very quickly. So if you can just jump in a yes or no, and we can contact you after. And then we'll move into my next question, which is going to be an interesting one for you, Rob, to finish off. In the onus of time, we've got 5 minutes, and it's a big question. So we'll finish that poll off now. So thank you, everyone. There's been a large amount that for those that did put yes, we'll be in contact with you in the coming few days. Rob, final question for today before we wrap up. How do you become $1 million accountant?
Yeah, sure. I suppose this is what I'm known for, if you like. And I remember the first instance when a two-partner firm, they were making $400,000 a year and doing really well. And this is the very first firm I helped do this. And I said, so why are you here? They said, we want a bigger boat. Right? So right, want a bigger boat. Literally. And in a year, they finished the program, and they sent me a picture of their big boat. And as an aside, in the email, their see you later email, they also said, by the way, we've just hit $1 million profit per partner. And I've gone, that's pretty cool, right? And so you learn so much from firms that you work with. And so from that moment on, and that was a good 10 years ago now, and I've been promoting that partners of accounting firms, and it's, by the way, it's not just about the $1 million, it's more than that. Partners of accounting firms should be making, I believe, at least $1 million profit per partner whilst working less than 500 hours. That's what I believe, and that's what I see the really good firms are doing. And it's not about the money, because to get to that point, it's about the structure and the way the business is operating. And so how do you get there? Well, a lot of the things we've been talking about today, but it's all about, the way the systems internally, the way this business is managed, and, observing these firms, how they work with their people, whether it be their workflow, whether it be their pricing, their offshoring. The list is endless. But that's what I'm here to do, to help firms, be extremely profitable. And I believe, by the way, that an accounting firm should be the beacon of running a good business, because if you buy into the fact that you are the trusted advisor, then the trusted advisory business should be running a better business than those that they advise. So just yesterday, I announced on social channels that my company, Panalytics, I've stepped out of. It's now in the hands of the board and the leadership team, which frees up a lot of capacity for me to do what I'm really passionate about, which is directly work and mentor partners of accounting firms. So if anyone is interested in that, if anyone's looking for some external help, then I suppose put a note in the question area, just put yes, and it's an expressions of interest. I can only work with a handful of firms at any one time. Expressions of interest, and I'll look to see, if you're the type of firm that we can both work together. We'll have a little interview process. So if that's of interest, looking to be mentored to get you to that level of $1 million profit per partner, then just put a yes in the question area, and Nick will send me the names, and we'll do a follow-up call. So, final words. All my email address is on the screen, rob@robnixon.com. Shoot me an email.
Excellent. Wonderful, Rob. So thank you very much. A few quick things before we wrap up, and final words from Rob. I've mentioned a few times today throughout the webinar around our podcast. So we do have a podcast called The Offshore Accountant, and it interviews our clients from sole practitioners right up to second-tier firms around their experiences with building a global team. So do make sure you tune into that. You can get that on our website, theoutsourcedaccountant.com. Also, our weekly ledger that goes out, lots of content and articles regarding how to grow and help a firm. A lot of the snaps that we take from the webinar today, we then republish into a lot bigger content for you to read as well. So do check that out. And our next webinar is on the 13th of June. So an accountant's view to setting up an offshore team. So we've actually got one of our clients and their team members talking about the myths and spending more time with clients. So Rob, a big thank you today for attending or for being a co-presenter with this. Any final words that you'd love to say to the listeners today? Yeah, I do actually. Just a couple of things. Norman Schwarzkopf, the late General Norman Schwarzkopf, Storm and Norman from the Gulf War in the early 90s. I attended a seminar one day, and it was called From the War Room to the Boardroom. And there were 10,000 people there. It was in Sydney. And I only remember one thing, and that is that he said in his hour speech. He said, when in command, take charge. And so I say to all the partners of the accounting firms here listening, right? It's your life. It's your business. You need to take charge if you're in command and get this business to a shape that you want it to be, because this should be the business that provides wealth for you and your family. It's a great opportunity. We've got a lot of change happening in the marketplace right now, but when in command, take charge. Rob, a great way to finish off. As always, Rob, really thankful for your time today and all the insights you've given to everyone on the webinar today and everyone that attended the webinar. Really appreciate you giving us an hour of your time to listen to all of Rob's wise words, and hopefully you will take some of this away. And this is my final words, is if nothing changes, nothing changes. So thank you for your time today. We really look forward to catching up with you again in the near future. So thank you, and thank you, Rob. You're welcome. Bye-bye.